Hey Jack, the bravest kid. Chapter 1. This is Jack. Today Jack is in an exploring mood. He and his best friend Billy are playing explorers. Exploring mood. Exploring hat. Feels brave and bold. Feathered monster. They have made a hideout in Billy's backyard. It is made from scraps of wood and tin. From here they can spy on the feather monsters. Billy finds a big plank of wood at the bottom of the wood pile. "Hey," she says, "let's make a bridge." "Good idea," says Jack. He helps Billy lift one end of the wood onto the roof of their hideout. They lift the other end onto the chicken coop. It makes a very good bridge. Now we can creep up on the feather monsters without them seeing us. Billy says, grinning. She begins to climb up onto the plank of wood. Says Jack, "I don't know, it looks dangerous." "Don't be silly," Billy says. "Look, it doesn't wobble at all." She pushes the plank of wood. It doesn't move. "But still," Jack says. "But what if you fall off? It's a long way to the ground." His tummy began to squeeze with worry. Billy rolls her eyes. "The monkey bars at school are much higher than this," she says. "I know," Jack says, "but—" "Come on," says Billy. She climbs up on the plank of wood and sits waiting for him. Jack bites the inside of his lip. His heart jumps about. He doesn't want to climb up there. He wishes she could come down. "I don't want to play this game any more," he says. Billy frowns. "You're such a scaredy cat," she says. "I'm not," Jack says. "You are," Billy says. "You never want to do anything fun." "That's not true, Billy," Jack says. "Then prove it," Billy says, crossing her arms. "Fine, I will," says Jack, angrily. He climbs up the side of the hideout. Then he pulls himself up onto the plank next to Billy. Billy smiles and gives Jack a hug. "See," she says, "it's not scary, is it?" Jack looks down. It's not very far from the ground. Billy is right. It's not too scary at all. Chapter 2. "Look at us," Billy says. She stands up on the bridge. Then she holds her arm out and walks over to the chook pen. "I'm the queen of the world," she shouts. Jack grins and stands up too. "And I'm the king of the world," he yells. He walks slowly towards Billy. Suddenly a chicken flaps up towards him. Jack gets a fright and steps backwards. His foot slips and he falls off the plank onto the ground. "Ow!" he yelled. His foot is twisted up under him. Billy jumps down beside him. "Oh no," she says. "Are you okay?" Jack tries to move his foot. It hurts so much. His tummy squeezes, but he swallows back his tears. He doesn't want Billy to see him crying. She might think he isn't brave. "Of course I'm okay," he says, laughing extra loudly. Billy looked worried. "Maybe I should go and get your mum," she says. "You look pale." "I'm fine," Jack says. He frowns. "I think I've just twisted my ankle, that's all." He stands up to show Billy he is okay. Pain stabs through his ankle like a knife. "Here, lean on me," Billy says. "Maybe we should play inside for a bit." Jack leans on Billy, against Billy. They hobble back to his house. Every step makes Jack's ankle hurt, but he tries not to let Billy see. It will stop hurting soon, he thinks. He hopes he is right. That night Jack can't sleep. His ankle is hurting so much. He thinks about telling his mum and dad, but he doesn't want them to make a fuss. It'll be better tomorrow, he thinks. But the next morning his ankle is very swollen. It hurts to put his shoe on. He limps downstairs. Every step makes his tummy curl up in pain. "Are you okay?" says his mum when she sees him. Yes, says Jack. I just twisted my ankle yesterday, that's all. Jack's mum kneels down to look at his ankle. Oh, darling, I think we need to get you to a doctor to look at that. It looks sore. I'm fine, says Jack, feeling cross. But when his mum touches his foot, Jack gasps. Tears spring into his eyes. He wipes them away quickly with his hand. Jack's mum puts her hand on her hips. Sorry, mister, she says, but we are taking you to a doctor right now. Jack nods his head. Finally, the big lump of tears in his throat bursts. It feels good to cry. His mum gives him a hug. Don't tell Billy, he says. She'll think I'm not brave. Don't be silly, says Jack's mum. Billy is your best friend. She wouldn't think that. But she called me a scaredy cat, Jack says quietly. Well, I'm sure she didn't mean it, says Jack's mum. But it wasn't a very nice thing to say. There's nothing wrong with being scared. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is to say that you are scared. Jack nods his head. He knows his mum is right. Chapter 3. Jack's mum helps him to the car. They drive to the doctor's office. There are lots of people in the waiting room. They wait a long time. Jack watches the cartoons on the TV so he doesn't have to think about his ankle. It is hurting a lot. Finally, the nurse calls Jack into the doctor's room. Jack tries to stand up, but his ankle hurts so much he yelps. Tears fill his eyes. Oh dear, says the nurse. She gives Jack some medicine and a little plastic cup of water. This will help you with the pain, she said kindly. She and Jack's mum help him limp into the doctor's office. Then they help Jack up onto the high bed covered with white paper. The nurse slips a lollipop into Jack's pocket. That's for being so brave, she whispers. Thank you, Jack says. His voice is high and squeaky. The doctor has a look at Jack's ankle. Now it is very puffy and beginning to turn purple and blue. I think your ankle might be broken, he says. Broken? Says Jack. He is surprised. Goodness, says Jack's mum, you poor thing. She gives him a cuddle. Yes, said the doctor. See how swollen it is? It must hurt a lot. Well, I guess it does, Jack says. I thought it was just twisted, though. We'll book you in for an X-ray, said the doctor. You'll probably need to wear a cast for a few weeks. Jack grins. A cast? He has never broken a bone before. He can't wait to tell Billy. That afternoon, Billy comes to visit Jack after school. He is sitting in bed with his foot on a pillow. She gives him some comics as a present. Wow, a real cast, Billy says. Can I sign it? Sure, says Jack proudly. I can't believe you didn't even cry, Billy says. It must have hurt so much. It did, Jack says. But I didn't want to cry in front of you. I thought you might think I wasn't brave. What? Said Billy. I think you're super brave. Even though you were scared to come up on the plank with me, you still did it. That makes you even braver than me, really. Really? Says Jack. Yeah, says Billy. And I definitely would have cried if I broke my ankle. Yeah, but you're a girl, Jack says, blushing. It's okay for girls to cry. That's the silliest thing I've ever heard, Billy says. You are my best friend, Jack. I don't care if you cry. Thanks, Billy, says Jack. And even though his ankle still hurts, he feels very happy.